Hello there and a very warm welcome to another edition of Channels Beam. I'm Victor Matthias. Now, with only 1 in 10 women reporting the cases of sexual violence to the police, the UN is marking the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence to create global awareness on the menace so as to continue to find ways to bring it to an end. On the program today, we will be looking at statistics of reported cases, successful convictions, as well as measures Nigerians are taking to end the scourge. And joining us to look at this, we have from our Abuja studio, Martin Obono. He is a lawyer with a demonstrated history of working in the internet industry. He is a strong business development professional with an executive program focused in expanding impacts for NGOs and public institutions from Harvard Kennedy School. It's a pleasure to have you on the program today, Martin.
Having me.
Of course. We also have joining us via Zoom from Abuja, Indi Kato. She is the Executive Director of Dinidari Africa. Indi, it's a pleasure to have you as well on the program today. And also joining us is Elvis Akpobi from Asaba, the Delta State capital. He is the SA to the Delta State Governor on Youth Development. It's a pleasure to have you as well on the program today. All right, Indi, kickstart the conversation for us. I mean, we've heard so much about the 16 days of activism, but beyond all of the headlines and the themes and all of that, what are the on-ground things that are being done, especially in Nigeria, to ensure that gender-based violence is reduced to the barest minimum?
The state of emergency on SGBV, sexual and gender-based violence, was declared. The Office of the Vice President took it upon themselves to help with the coordination. The National Human Rights Commission, too, set up their toll lines for calling. And let's also point out that it was during the COVID-19 response that it was realized that, look, there's some epidemic within the pandemic, COVID-19 being the pandemic and sexual and gender-based violence being the epidemic, and that women were actually being dealt with on a certain level at home by people who they were locked up with during the lockdown and all of that. So something needed to be done. And so that unearthed a lot of things with respect to sexual and gender-based violence. And with respect to the response, international and local organizations stepped up. There's been more advocacy on sexual and gender-based violence. Funds, in terms of funds, NGOs from OSIWA to the EU, to Ford Foundation, they have decided to put forward, to prioritize funding for response to sexual and gender-based violence. Prior to this, people who are first responders, organizations who provide sexual assault referral centers have found it quite difficult to get help, in as much as funds come, but that prioritization hasn't been there, and that has been an issue. So right now, it is top priority. Government is trying to set up more referral centers. First ladies of state, especially, first ladies led by Erelu Bisi Fayemi, have been doing so many things in terms of trying to respond, trying to ensure that there are sexual assault referral centers. The Violence Against Persons Prohibitions Act, which was at first a gendered act, but because of the kind of resistance women find, I want to use the opportunity to talk about that, the kind of resistance women find when they are trying to push bills that profit women or move against the dehumanization of women. Most of those bills are not put for are not received well. So it was changed to the VAP Act, Violence Against Persons Prohibitions Act, and that act too has been passed in several states. Even core northern states that we thought that there might have been some resistance to it. Women have pushed and women have found that these acts, many first ladies have been pushing for this from their seats. We are now getting to one of the final points. I won't say the final point. The final point is actually the eradication of sexual and gender-based violence in our societies. But the next step we're seeing now is the setting up of special courts. Barrister Hawa Shekarau, who was the MBA chairperson for Abuja before her passing, was pushing for special courts for sexual and gender-based violence before her passing. And we're beginning to see, I think it was Martins Obono, he's on this. I saw his post on a mock court already being set to test run how this is going. So a lot has been going on, a lot is still going on. And let's not forget the media, people like you, Victor, who actually use their platforms to shed light on this. And activities like 16 Days of Activism to make sure that every year, even though we are doing this work, at a certain time every year there's so much intensity, and people remember that this is happening and work is being done and how they can contribute to the work.
All right, very well, Indy. I'll come back to you on some of the things that you said and some of the issues that you raised. But let me quickly, again, welcome Elvis Akpobi. He's joining us via Zoom from Asaba. Elvis, it's a pleasure to have you on the program today.
Thanks for having me. Good afternoon.
Of course, good afternoon again. One of the things, that has also, been an issue, in trying to end this violence, is the issue of stigma. Which those who suffer from this, actually have to come to terms with, in their everyday life. What is being done, to ensure that people don't hide in their shells, especially, in your own states? What is being done to ensure that people don't hide in their shells and they have to come out and report cases when the need arises?
For me, I believe that it's how if good policies are made, like if someone was involved in, SDVV and the person got prosecuted, like when someone commits a crime like that and the person is prosecuted, it will give people that enthusiasm to want to open up that, should I open up that this is what I experienced, this is what I'm experiencing, this person will be prosecuted, and it will limit how it occurs across the globe. Because for me, it's becoming an everyday scenario where there are a lot of people who are experiencing such today, but they keep it quiet, not because they're not feeling pains inside, not because they're not depressed, because they don't know if they tell the next person, they don't know if the next person, how the next person will put it to them, and they will become an object of mockery. So if we make policies that will, nail people that are involved in sexual-based violence and all that, I think it will reduce, and it will make people always come out to, talk what they are experiencing and whoever assaulted them.
All right, so when you talk about policies, what kind of policies specifically are you talking about?
So that we have, I believe that we elect legislators to make these policies for our betterment. If there are bills and laws against gay and all that, I think there should be a very good bill, and not just making laws or policies. It should be implemented and structures to enact those laws to take place as a country, even as a continent. We need to start making people know that whoever gets involved in this will face this, and we'll use one or two persons as an example. And those laws are strengthened, it will reduce. And you see people coming up to say what they're going through.
All right, very well. I'll come back to you in a bit. But let me quickly head over to our Abuja studio where Martin Mobono is standing by. Martin, Indy talked about, some of the courts that are being, put in place, and also Elvis just talked about laws. So pretty much, I think they're agreeing on some of these things. But in your own estimation, especially looking at those courts that are being formed here and there, what else do you think can be done to ensure that sexual, gender-based violence, is reduced to the barest minimum?
Thank you very much. Basically, there are quite a lot of laws in Nigeria that already regulate or provide legislative protection for women in Nigeria in terms of sexual and gender-based violence. One of them is the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. Another is the Evidence Act. Another is the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. However, one of the biggest problems or challenges that we have in Nigeria is in terms of the implementation of these laws. And when I talk about implementation of these laws, is from the point of investigating a particular crime or a particular offense committed against someone that is gender related, and up until the time that the justice is being delivered and how justice is being delivered. So recently what we did with the British Council as consultants was to set up mock trials to help and see how to kind of display to the Federal Capital Territory, how when you have specialized courts for sexual gender-based violence related offenses, how these courts can help to provide or bring justice to people timeously, and how people who are actually trained in that aspect of the law can help to fast track and deliver justice to the people. I mean, instead of having people who jump around from different, different people prosecute different offenses. So we now have specialized courts, or we are trying to propose specialized courts within the Federal Capital Territory that will look at sexual and gender-based violence specifically, just as it is done in Lagos State, and I think in Nasarawa State. And in the case of Adamawa State, what we have there is that there are specialized judges, or there are judges that actually deal on SGBV-related cases. So in all, what we're trying to do is, even in line with what the Attorney General of the Federation promised in 2020, that there is a need actually for us to have specialized courts that deal with SGBV cases in the FCT, in the Federal Capital Territory. And so these are the kind of things that are needed to be able to bring justice, because sometimes when justice is delayed, it could also mean that justice is being denied. And to have specialized judges, and not just specialized prosecutors, but specialized judges, specialized investigators that will also know how to handle this kind of cases, instead of just throwing this thing to the general public or to everybody, to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, who may not have the requisite experience and know-how to be able to prosecute these cases. So it is very, very important that we begin to look in as a country, as a people, as people working in this sector, to see how we can actually put together a special court that will now implement these laws that actually protect the rights of women in our climes.
All right, so is there any form of collaboration, so to speak, now that, is putting all of this together, and putting it forward to the government, or, to people in power, to ensure that these things are put in place?
Yes, in fact, the mock trial courts that Ndikato referred to was done with heavy collaboration from the Federal Ministry of Justice and the Office of the Attorney General. It was done with heavy collaboration with the judiciary, FCT judiciary. And so we actually had the real-time judges in FCT who served as the judges in the mock trial courts. We also used, in fact, the Supreme Court Justice was also one of those who came during the appeal, when we had the appeal cases demonstrated, to actually adjudicate on the case. So essentially there is heavy collaboration in that aspect, because it's already been agreed that there is a need for us to have specialized courts that deal with this cankerworm that we actually have brewing in our society. So the collaboration, including NAPTIP, for example, NAPTIP is also part of this collaborative efforts, and the Nigerian police, to ensure that we have specialized courts in the FCT. And it's also just encouraging other states as well to be able to take up this particular aspect of jurisprudence, so that we would have women have justice delivered to them. I mean, it's not just enough, because at some points you can't prevent a bird from hovering over your head, but you can prevent it from perching on your head, and it probably defecates in. So you can't actually prevent or stop gender-based violence in our climes, but we can actually deliver justice to these people timeously, and also deliver adequately to these people, and even render compensations to victims of these abuses. So the collaborative effort is very, very huge, and is a welcome development. And we also encourage other states in Nigeria to see how they can also bring this to bear in terms of setting up specialized courts, because of the kind of success stories that you hear from Lagos and Adamawa.
All right. Well, that's actually soothing to hear that you're getting success responses from some states in the country, even though just two. But just hold your thoughts for a bit. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll look at statistics, and we'll look at the issue of stigmatization as well. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We still have with us Ndi Kato joining us from Abuja via Zoom, Martin Obono joining us from our Abuja studio, as well as Elvis Akbobi joining us via Zoom as well from Asaba. But Ndi, let me just come to you now. Let's look at now the statistics, because just before we went on break, Martin talked about how successes have been recorded in Lagos and in Adamawa State. But, generally, what are the statistics, because we also understand men also suffer from, this violence. But, I mean, what do the statistics say right now?
So for women, we still have them in, sorry if I can use that word on TV, statistics. 7 out of every 10 women in Nigeria has experienced sexual and gender-based violence. And we still have laws that permit, under the penal code, husbands are still allowed to beat their wives. We still have situations in Nigeria where women do not have their rights. I mean, if in the penal code already that's contained that you can actually beat a person, and it puts, or unless you don't put injuries on the person, that just tells that person is not seen as equal. So that is a major issue. The Gender and Equal Opportunity Bill is before the House of Representatives now, and before the National Assembly now, and this is a bill that is seeking to correct some of these things. Now, these statistics, because if we're talking about sexual and gender-based violence, that one is it already that you're seeing. That, look, we have the highest, we also have the highest number of out-of-school children in Nigeria, and I think about 60% of that of that number is the girl child. And then child brides, I think Nigeria provides for more than, I've forgotten that particular number, but we are one of the highest in terms of child marriage in the world right now. And so all of these things fall under what women have been fighting for. Now, women have been able to put these things under different bills to try to get to see them passed. But we need to see them front and center now. We need to see them front and center. And some of these things, the VAP Act seeks to change. But within the VAP Act, because of child marriage, we still have the point being 11, 12 years old. So we still have people up to that age, at that point, still being able to be given out. And these are all ground statistics for how, or these are all indices that point to this is the situation for Nigerian women. So on sexual and gender-based violence, there are certain things. We would say we want to reduce the number of women who have been beaten or who have been assaulted, who have experienced sexual and gender-based violence in Nigeria. But it's also tied to other indices. It's also tied to child marriage. It's also tied to girl child education. It's also tied to economic indices. And none of these indices look pure for Nigerian women at the moment. And many of these things can be tied to inequality, can be tied to the fact that women are not seen as equal humans as men. And so this is where it all starts from. So we can deal with it one after the other, or bring it under this umbrella and point to the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill, point to the VAP Act, points to several bills that are in the National Assembly right now, and these bills are pointing to equal rights for women. Yeah. And under the equal rights, under these laws and the implementation of these laws lies the response to how we can deal with these indices at the moment. Thank you.
All right, and we also have issues of people not coming forward, maybe due to cultural and religious choices. I mean, how do we deal with that kind of situation quickly?
So currently, what our organization has been doing, Dinidari Africa, what we've been doing is, in collaboration with the National Human Rights Commission, we've been going to local communities and trying to educate local communities. And because Nigeria is so vast, it's not easy. So more organizations need to continue. And more women organizations are actually, women-led organizations are doing that. More CSOs, NGOs are doing that. You need to go to these communities and educate. We just finished with some communities in Abuja, Kuchigoro, and we saw women coming forward. Oh, I was beaten like this. My husband has seized our children. They didn't know that these are things that you can actually bring forward to the law. So education is one thing. Then we need to target gatekeepers of communities. Who are the gatekeepers of communities? Religious leaders, pastors, imams, priests. We need to target the kings, the chiefs, ruling class of these communities, because people listen to these people, respect these people, and educate them. We can't say that, oh, this community, our communities are patriarchal, so we leave it like that. Culture is not something that is static. Culture goes on, and sometimes can be reinvented. Culture is what exists now. So if we can look into the current culture of Nigeria and see what we can do to do behavioral change, and start from these gatekeepers of these communities, start from the leaders of the communities as we're doing right now, we will see change. Because many of times when you go to them first, then they open their communities to you to talk to them. And then now everybody knows where to go to when these things are happening. But it should also give us food for thought that if women in Nigeria are not coming out we are saying that women are not coming out as much, right, to report sexual and gender-based violence cases. And even at that, we're finding out that 7 out of 10 Nigerian women have been affected by sexual and gender-based violence. Imagine if everybody actually came out to talk about this thing. It would be a 10 out of 10, right? Thank you.
All right. Again, I have to say thank you, but let me just ask you to hold your thoughts. Let me quickly also hear from Elvis, who is joining us via Zoom from Asaba. Elvis, now, so one of the issues is, knowing your rights and knowing where to report. Like Indy said, they're doing things around the FCT. Martin also talked about things that are being done, within Lagos and other states. But in Delta, I mean, now, which is where you are, where can people go to when they have issues, of this SGBV?
Okay. As a state, the state governor, who's a medical doctor, who's very, very intimate with what is happening and a lot of things based on his experience. He appointed an SSA on a girl child, which has been over the years, getting involved in things like this. And I think you can report to such offices. Aside that, there's a committee that was set up, headed by the state government, on human rights. It's a committee that had to do with most young persons are in that committee. And for me, I believe that most of these things occur lately among the young persons. And there's a way, the only way the most important way to, influence people is get to pay influence. So the governor in his own magnanimity appointed young persons in that particular committee for human rights. And I think anybody, as long as Delta State is concerned, people are reporting every day. A member of that committee is my friend, and I get issues, I get positive feedback on how they are being treated. But even as we talk about where they can be reported, let's start with how are we raising our children, our male child, how are we raising them to respect the male folks? Because we talk about laws and all that. Fine, our generation already experienced it. What about the generation behind us? What message are we sending to them that the body of a lady is not a punching bag? Have we thought of that? How we treat it? Because most of these things, they replicate themselves. Once a child grows up, seeing the parent, the father always using the mother as a punching bag, and sees that it's nothing, it will always multiply. So for me, in as much as we talk about where people will report, let's flatten that curve by raising our children in a way where they will respect the male folks, and where the female folks will respect the male folks, and vice versa. With that, I think if there are moral values, that there's a culture of, like you talk about culture. Culture for me was made by people. It can be deconstructed by people over time. So if parents start raising their children properly to respect both the male folks and the female folks, that the female folks is not a subject of a punching bag and all that, the next generation coming, it will flatten that curve of gender and sexual-based violence.
All right, so pretty much you're just saying that the onus also lies on us as parents, as brothers, as husbands, as wives, as brothers and sisters as well, to ensure that we bring this to the barest minimum. But also, just hold your thoughts, and let's quickly hear from Martin, who is in our Abuja studio. Martin, of course, I believe you would be having the last word, in looking at other things that can be done. Now we've talked about laws, we've talked about personal responsibilities, we've talked about collaborations, but the stigma is actually one of those things that has also prohibited people from coming out. Indy talked a little bit about that. But how do we get people to come out, more people to come out, rather than just staying back and holding it, saying or calling it a family business now when these things happen?
Thanks for mentioning the aspect of stigmatization of SGBV-related matters, and how it basically affects the points of reportage or reporting. basically, I want to essentially seize this opportunity to let the audience understand that the shame is not on you, who is the survivor or the victim, as the case may be. The shame is meant to be on the perpetrator of that particular crime. And so you don't have anything to be afraid of. You shouldn't have anything to be ashamed of. And in the real sense, is the person who perpetrated this crime or the offense that should be ashamed of himself or herself, as the case may be, because it was a good thing that you actually stated the fact that men also are also suffer domestic, or victims are also victims of domestic sexual and related
violence,
sexual and gender-based violence. And so, as it's where, it is very important that we change that believe that it's a shameful thing on the survivor or the victim, as the case may be, and push it back on the perpetrator himself to show that the person who committed the crime is the one who should be ashamed of himself, or should be the one hiding in shame and disgrace, not the person who is a victim or who is at the receiving end. So we should
Martin, this would be
to encourage a lot of people to come out and speak up. As the case may be.
This would be a good point, to hold the conversation. Martin, I have to say thank you to you as well, for joining us today. Also, thank you to Undi, thank you to Elvis as well. This is where we wrap it up on the show today, and you can find our movie videos on our social media platforms, on YouTube, on Instagram, as well as Facebook. But that's the show today. Thank you for watching. I'm Victor Mathias.